Welcome to my introduction to Flask. We're about to CRUD together. That sounded weird, but it was supposed to. Not that kind. We are going to make web applications, CRUD applications. Create, read, update, delete. And over this mini course, I'm going to break this down for you guys through interactive lessons as well as interactive code all the way to your app deployed on the World Wide Web. If you guys are ready to dive in and start making web applications in Python with a nice, easy introduction to Flask, this is the right course for you. Let's dive in. Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Code with Josh. For really obvious reasons, I'm Josh, and I'm really glad that you guys are here. Today's kind of a special one, right? I wanted to create a longer project for you guys and give you an introduction to web development, an introduction to Flask, right? If we have to start between Flask and Django, Flask is the way to go, and it's going to lead us into Django shortly. In today's episode, I mentioned we are going to make CRUD. Right? Well, not that, okay? But we are going to make a CRUD application. These are popular applications that show your engagement with databases and allow us to create, read, update, and display. Okay, so think of a basic to-do application, except ours is going to be much more stylish. And in this course, I'm going to teach you guys core technologies. We are going to be using Flask, SCSS or Sassy CSS, as well as Sqlalchemy to bring our creation to life. Guys, before I dive into the episode, do me a favor. Click the like button and subscribe, as that really does help me, a growing channel, reach more students around the world. If you guys like this kind of content, comment below and let me know, because I want to know your thoughts. And if you guys have missed it, you can get my 3 free Python courses, over 30 hours of content, absolutely free. There are the links in the description. Most of my content is free, guys, all right? But if you want to show your support, I do have a premium newsletter that's paired with my free newsletter. That's the link in the description. Head on down to my newsletter, sign up for it. It's absolutely free, and you can get premium content if you want it as well, okay? But all the courses and YouTube, that's for you guys. All right, enough of me chit-chatting. Let's dive into why you're here. An introduction to Flask. It's time to CRUD. Let's make some CRUD together. Yep, that's right. This is our intro to Flask, and together we're making a CRUD app. But the question is, what is CRUD? No, it's not what you're thinking, right? Let's discuss. So a CRUD application is an application which allows us to create, read, update, and delete. Okay, together, this creates a CRUD application. Now, in its most basic form, and what we're doing here today is creating a to-do list. We can create tasks, we can read tasks, update them, or delete them. And really anything we do with databases, we should be able to create a basic CRUD application for storing and updating our data. This is that. So there are a few things that you're going to achieve here in this course, right? All of which are listed, right? So one, you're going to understand the basic operations of a CRUD application, some hands-on experience, and key, a lot of us are here for, is database interaction, right? It's a way for us to interact with the database, SQL. And I'm also going to introduce you guys to HTTP methods, right? So our GET and our POST requests. And all these skills here, they're transferable skills because we can use these in other applications while we're learning new frameworks and tech along the way. So a CRUD application is a great portfolio project. It's a great project to showcase that you understand all of these skills, not only Flask, but you understand how databases work. You understand HTTP requests, all of these. All right, let's keep going. Now that we know what this is, let me break down Flask a bit for us. So how does this really work together? So where Python comes into play now, right, is Python is like a container. It's the main hub. It's our main app, right? And Python, or Flask, because that's what we're doing here, we can connect to other web pages. This connection is what we call a root. It's a route, it's the path we take to go to a web page within the greater website. The greater website is like Flask, and these web pages are the HTML files. So you can see my main hub is Python, and then each page is an HTML file that can have its own styling, right? This is where we hold the HTML CSS. And we can have as many different pages as we want. We can just create a route. All right, let me draw a line here. We can just create these routes, 1, 2, 3, to different web pages. Now, because Python is acting as our hub, Python is the one who has this connection with our database. They make queries, the database sends back that information, and then we can use Python to push it onto one of our pages. Okay, so this is very broadly how Flask works. Now just remember that Python is like your hub. Everything's connected to Python, it's your controller. We then create these paths, these routes to web pages within our website. And we can connect our hub to our database to make requests. Very broadly, this is how we're going to create our CRUD app today. Okay, now I want to show you guys my ideation process, right? So because looking at a big application is tough, you need to break it down into baby steps. So here's the setup we're going to go through together today, okay? I'm going to introduce a basic setup. Once we have everything set up and ready to go, it's time to create a model, okay? And this model is our database and going forward here. Now, the only one I haven't put on here, right, is deployment. The final step of our application is we want to deploy it onto the web, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that. We see the basic ideation process. What is our tech stack? Well, this is the tech stack that I've chosen here today, okay? All of these tools will be used, right? Python and Flask go hand in hand together. Flask is a micro web framework which allows us to create web applications in Python. Okay, for my backend database, you could use different versions of SQL here, right? The one I'm going to be pairing with today is called Sqlalchemy, which we'll discuss at a later point. And then the bonus one here is I'm actually going to be using SCSS or SASS. This literally just means Sassy CSS, Sassy CSS, okay? You don't have to do this. This is a preprocessor for CSS, and I love it because it just allows me to write cleaner CSS and I can work faster. And I'm going to show you guys how we can use this in your project. Are you ready? Because this tech skill stack, I'm excited for. Let's dive in to break down each of those steps in our process. So here's how I'm going to go through it today, okay? Step 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, going through each of these, you can view these as like a chapter in the course today, okay? The basic setup looks the most intimidating as it's the longest, but this is really just the initial steps that we take in mostly any project, okay, that I just want to bring together here. Now, this seems like the most steps because it kind of is, but it's not the most task intensive, and it's not the most challenging step. Once we get our basic setup ready to go, everything's looking, okay. Then it's time to create a database model. Now, I'm going to create a model because this isn't just good for Flask. As you progress into Django, for example, this is going to go hand in hand. And because we're working with a database, a model represents a row in our database. And we're going to discuss how you can create a class to do this. Once we get our database going, it is then time for our HTTP requests. This is really the functionality of our app because it's going to allow us to add a task, delete a task, and edit a task. And our two responses we're going to use are the get and post from HTTP. That's pretty exciting, okay? Now, the last step of any project or application is really like the final design. Once you get everything looking and functioning how it should, it's ugly, but it works. It's time to add some CSS or some SASS. That is the final part of the styling process I'm going to do here with you today. All right, if you guys are ready, I'm ready to jump into this project. okay? You're not gonna see as much as me, but I'm gonna flip between me and the code. I'm not gonna put me in the code like a Loom video, right? Because I find that can be rather distracting in these videos. Nope, we're gonna cut this part. If you're ready, I'm more than ready. I'm stoked to make this CRUD, this application, with you guys today. All right, if you're ready, let's jump into VS Code. All right, so here we are in a new empty folder. I've created a folder up top here called My Flask App. All right, and we just want to start from this point. Now, what's the first thing we want to do in any new project? I want to create a virtual environment to store everything I'm doing so I'm not installing these packages all over our system. So our first thing we're going to do Command J. I'm going to open up my terminal down here. And let's get everything kind of set up to where we want it. So in order to get a virtual environment activated on a Mac, I will put the Windows code here as well. All right. So I'm going to run Python 3-m venv virtual environment in the name of my virtual environment. It's popular naming convention, env. Click enter and you can see a folder appear up here. Okay, that's great. Everything's working right. It'll do its thing. Okay. In order to get into our virtual environment, I'm going to say source name of our environment /bin/activate. Click enter and you can see an env appear here in our terminal. Now, if I want to turn this off, I can do that in one word, right? All I have to do is type deactivate, enter, and you can see that I'm out of my environment. To go back in, once again, source, the name /bin/activate. Okay, I'm going to run pip list. Let's look at all the packages I have installed, and you can see I don't have anything. That's because I'm in my virtual environment. This is where I want to be because I'm going to be importing a bunch of new stuff. All right, speaking of that, what do we need here? Well, let's import a few things. I'm installing 3 things. I'm installing Flask, which is our web framework we're working with, but I did tell you guys that I'm going to be using SASS or SCSS. Now, you don't have to. You can use CSS. I like SASS. I find it easier, and I'm just going to use that here. So I'm importing that as well as Sqlalchemy. That's what we're going to be using for our database in the future. Run it. Let our code do its thing. Great. Once we're done, I will type clear. If we type pip list just to check, wonderful. You can see everything here that it's installed with those packages, right? But really the 3 I ran it are these, and the other dependencies we need are just included with these 3 packages. Now that I have everything, I'm going to make a requirements text file, right? So these are the dependencies and packages that anyone who works with this project is going to need. All we need to do to get this to work is say pip freeze. I'm going to use the alligator greater than sign and then type requirements.txt. It's a text file. Click enter and you can see the file is generated, right? So these were all the dependencies that we need in order to get our application to work. We are doing great. I'm going to clear it. I'm going to trash my terminal. And this is pretty much how I like to get set up. We're now ready for the next part. So let's create our Python file. I'm going to call this app.py. All right. And inside here, let's just get everything set up. Okay, so I'm going to label this all of our imports. I just want to visually see what I'm working with before we start adding in everything else we need. All right, so let's bring in our imports. Let's create that super basic Flask application. All I want to see on the screen is hello world. So we can say from Flask, import Flask. I'm going to say from Flask CSS, I'm going to import the class SCSS. And then finally, we're going to do from Flask Sqlalchemy. I would like to import Sqlalchemy. Now, one thing to note here, okay, we got SASS imported through pip. But I also want you guys to get a VS Code extension if you're going to use this. It's the same one I'm using. Over in our extensions tab, I just want you to type in SASS, and then it's going to be the extension that looks like this. Okay, so just download it on VS Code. This is going to come into handy, or it's going to be handy once we start doing SASS. All right, so let's close this down. All right, everything is pretty much ready to go. Okay, now what we really need is my app, our app. So I'm going to say app, this is our object, is equal to Flask.
And inside here, this is just the name we're putting here. It's the name of our Flask application. It's just like app. I'm going to create our first page. Now, I am going to go into more detail about this, but index is like the home page. Okay, it's the first main page of our application, and I'm creating a route for our home page now. We will expand on this here in the future. So inside index, I'm going to say return, let's just say testing 1, 2, 3. Now, this is our home page, and I need to decorate this. In order to create a route to our home page, I need to use the Flask decorator and create a route. So we can say here, at app, I would like to create a route. Now, what is the URL? Well, because it's the home page, I'm just going to put a slash in there for now. In order to give our app a final test, I'm going to run down here if the name is in our main file. I'm going to say app.run, and I would like my debugger to always be on, so Flask is updating itself. That's great. That's really all we need. Let's run this. Okay, so you can go to this URL down here. I'm going to hold Option, click, boom, there we go. So you can see testing 1, 2, 3, that's what I'm returning onto my web page. We have everything in action. That's great. Now what we're doing is each page is actually an HTML file. That's how we create the web page. I'm using Flask as like a hub, and it's the manager for all the routes to all of our different pages. So let me style our homepage a bit differently. Let's bring in, let's say, an HTML file as well as our CSS. Let's open up here. I'm going to go back to our files. So we want to do a few things. Now I'm going to create 2 folders. One is going to be called templates. Templates is going to hold every individual web page on our website. Next, I'm going to create a folder called static. Now I'm going to make sure that static is outside of templates, okay? And static is going to hold our CSS files or JavaScript if we bring that into this code as well. We won't need that for this project. So inside templates, well, before that actually, I'm going to create a file called index.html. Okay, to get your boilerplate, HTML5, click enter, and this is just our basic HTML structure. Now we won't go into this too much in this course, okay, I will touch on a few things, but having a basic understanding of HTML is of great benefit for Flask. So I want to do a few things here. The title, for now, I'm just going to say is my app. Let's just connect everything. I can give it a test h1 like welcome to my app. And then I'll give it a dummy paragraph. I'll type lorem for lorem ipsum for our dummy text. All right. This is great. The last thing I want to do here is I'm going to create a link. And this is how we connect our CSS files. Okay, and so I'm creating a link and it's giving me this boiler template. And really all we're going to have to change here to a point is right here at the end. Okay, so I'm going to do that now actually. Let's take our index file and let's drag it up to templates. All right, so remember every route in our app is a template. So we're holding it in this templates folder. And Flask knows that it needs to go to this folder to get the templates at a future time. Speaking of that time, let's do that now. So index.html is in our templates folder. So in order to connect this, if I open up our app over here, I'm going to import additional things. I'm going to import render template up top here. And we're going to change our output now. So I'm going to say return. I would like to render a template. Which template from my folder do I want to use? Index.html. That's it, right? As soon as we run this code again, you can see that our app is incorporating all of our HTML stuff, right? So everything we had here is being put into our page. That's great. The last thing that I want to connect is our CSS file, or specifically in this case, our SASS file. So running over here, what we're going to do is I'm going to go up to our static folder and I'm going to create a file called styles.scss. Enter. Okay, so this is not originally connected, right? With the extension that you installed earlier, at the bottom of our page, we should see Watch SASS. I'm going to click this. And inside, it naturally creates a CSS file as well as a map. We don't need to worry about these because everything's going to be done here in our SCSS file. To give a quick test, I'm going to say body. Okay, I'm going to give the body a background color, and let's just do something light like wheat. I'm going to save that. Now we do need to connect this to our HTML file. So over here, we need to change a few things. Flask uses a language called Jinga in order to link basically our code inside these HTML templates. Jinga uses double curly brackets on either end with our code in the middle. All right, so in order to link a CSS file, I need to give a URL to that CSS file, right? So it's, as you can see, it's very similar here, but we're going to do something different. I'm going to say URL for. Now in old Flask, we needed to import this. We don't need to import this anymore. It just comes with Flask. The first argument is the name of the folder, so like static. Let me just actually close this. Come back here, okay? And the second argument is the name of our file. So I'm going to say file name styles.css. Okay, that's because all of our CSS will be written in Sass, but then we're just compiling it. And VSCode is just automatically converting it and putting it into that CSS file. Sass just allows us to write it neater, and we can create variables and useful things like that. Now that we have that, everything should be connected. Let's bring up our page again. I'm going to refresh. Boom, there you go. Our page is wheat, right? This is our basic template. It's all set up, it's ready to go. And you can see that all of my files are stored. All right, now that we're ready at this stage, it's now time to begin to create different pages and styling out what we want to see in our CRUD application. All right, do you remember? What do we want to put in this, right? It's like going to be a to-do list, a CRUD application. Create, read, edit, and delete. Let's start to create our template. Now we have everything initially set up, but I don't really have much styling. I want to structure our web page the way that I want it to look, and then I can start to add our data in, right? So what are we making here? Like a to-do list manager. I should see like rows with columns asking me and telling me to do things. Okay, so let's jump over onto our HTML. Now, in my HTML file, I'm actually going to code this out in testing, right? Just because, like I said, I can actually visualize what I'm seeing here. And then I can go live and test this as we go down. I'm going to create a div, and let's give it a class, and let's call it like content. This is everything inside of our app. Now we can give our app a name. What do you want to call it? Okay, I'm going to call mine like Task Smash 2.0. Is there a 1.0? No, there's not. Now, ideally, under my title, we want to see like a table, okay? And within the table, I'm going to have multiple rows, so TR, table row, and we're going to have multiple columns, so table head, TH, so column 1, column 2, column 3, okay? Inside here, put the names, right? And so we could say like your task, we could have it added, and then we could have our actions. Wonderful. In the next row, this is where like the live data is going to go. Okay, so speaking of that data, TD, table data, we're going to drop that in. So we're going to have our name of the task, we're going to have the date, and we're going to have a few other attributes. For now, let's just say content, date, more. Okay, let me see if I have this running. I'm going to go click go live. This is just going to be HTML now. Okay, so, we're starting to see things come to life. Ideally, right, in the bottom row here, this is where each new task will be added. So every time we add, it's going to go boom, 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 just each row. And we can edit those and delete those, okay? So it's our to-do list. Okay, this is okay. Really, under my table, the last thing I'm going to do is create a form. And this action, well, for now, let's leave all this blank. I'm going to come back to this. Inside the form, it's going to have two inputs. We're going to have input 1, we're going to have input 2. In the first input, I'm going to say this is name is going to be content again. And then our ID as well will be content, if I can spell any of this correctly. Okay, in our last one, this is a submit. We are going to have a value. And we can say like add task. And then lastly, we'll give it a button. We'll say add, button add. Okay, great. So everything is decent, okay? The problem is this is not in my Flask file. That's what we want to do. But very quickly, we want to talk about template inheritance and what that even means here in Flask. So very quickly, I'm going to introduce you to inheritance here with HTML. All right. Now this works inheritance just like anything in life. And because you're working with Python, you should have a good understanding of object-oriented programming. If you missed that, I have a course out absolutely free. I'm going to try and link that. Okay. But really, we have like a base template. This is like an HTML file that we can apply everything we need to and all the CSS to. And then we can create these children, and these children will inherit the initial template from the parent and all the stylings, and they can use it in theirs as well. So we don't have to give HTML boilerplate to every single file. Anything we want to add in the children, we can just inject more HTML and inherit from our base, our parent template. Okay, so the same idea of inheritance, this can be applied through Flask, through our HTML templates. All right, so that's what we want to do here. I want to create a base template, and then I want to create children and just give the base template to them and inject HTML as we need it. Okay, that was it. Back to our code. So we know template inheritance. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to create a base template. This is like the template that everything else is going to inherit. Okay, so HTML5, let's save that. Now we're going to have to put in some Jinga here of that new language. So I'm not really going to put anything. I'm going to actually delete title. We can put a link in here for our CSS, and that's good to go. Let's take our base, let's drive it up to templates and drop it. Okay, so inside here, we can finish this off. I'll put in our CSS file, so URL for static, great. Now with Jinga, I can create these blocks. So I have curly brackets with a %, and inside I can type block. And what's the name of this block? Well, it's in the head, so I'm gonna say head. Okay, that's the start. It needs a close, and for the close, we can just say end block, like so. Okay, so bear with me, but this is going to allow us to transfer code between our HTML files. All right, so I have one in the head, and then the body's not really going to have much in it either. I'm just going to say, hey, I'm going to add stuff here. This block is going to be called body, and then this block also needs to end, so end block. Okay, great. So this base is done. Okay, everything else is going to inherit from this, and it's going to apply this styling as well. The only difference we need to do now is in our index. I'm going to open these side by side for you guys. So we have our base. Let's close down. Here's our index, right? I don't need any of this, actually, okay, because we're inheriting the base template, which means we already have an HTML template within the base HTML file. I just want to inject code into the base file. So in our base file, we have these blocks. I'm just going to copy these. So that's 1 and 2. Okay, so now any other code we want in the HTML file can just go here. Like if we put here h1, let's make it a bit more readable. Hello, right? So this is going to be taken and pushed into this HTML template. Now, what we do need to do is I need to inherit the super HTML template, the base. So at the top of this file, the only thing we really need to do to inherit is we're going to use Jinga, and I'm going to say here extends. Inside, I'm going to give it a string. Where do we extend from? The base HTML file, just like that. Okay, everything else is completely done. Inside here, do we want a title for this page? I could say title, right? What is the closing title? And you can see now why it's just annoying to type in Flask. So like task, smash, right? So I have to type everything out by hand. Inside this body, let's bring back up testing. I'm gonna bring it over here. Okay, so all this content that I created, I'm actually just gonna remove it now. It was easier to do here, but now we're just gonna Control X and I'm gonna paste it. Boom, that's exactly where I want it. Okay, so let's shut things down. Everything should be going still. Let's go back to our page. Inside here, refresh. Oh, amazing. Okay, so you can see that we extended our base HTML and we're pushing it into our index HTML. This is really good, guys. So you've now conquered template inheritance. We create a parent template that can be passed down the line. Let me just reinforce that real quick. So you can see here, let's go to our files. Inside this base, I don't actually have anything. But for example, I could add here like H1, like welcome to the app. This is being taken from our base and inherited. So in our page, if I refresh, boom, we're still getting that, even though it wasn't in the child template index. Okay, so imagine you have a big web page, right? And there's something that's the same on every single page. Navbar or menu, okay? I could put that in the base and that just extends to all the children. That's really useful. So I'm gonna remove that because that's not really useful, okay? Brilliant. This really brings us into step 2 of creating our database. So I'm gonna shut these down. Okay, close our HTML. All right, let's go back to our app and let's get the rest of it set up. So just because we've imported it, I'm going to take SCSS, bring it down here, and I'm going to put my app inside that. Okay, that's really all we had to do. That's why I imported it. Okay, now it's time to use Sqlalchemy because we've created the HTML template of where the data is going to go. Now we need to create that database and create a model for that. So if we just head over here, I already have it open, okay? But if you literally just go to Flask Sqlalchemy, right, you're reading the documentation. Okay, so as a developer, you're relying on many resources to help you, all right? I'm just reading the documentation here. And if I go down, okay, there's a section on configure the extension. This is what we're gonna put here. So to get this set up, I'm gonna take our app and I would like to configure my app. Okay, inside here, I'm gonna drop what they had. So going down, I'm just gonna take this stuff. Copy, paste, fix anything I need to with that. Cool. The project DB, I mean, I can rename the database to what we want, right? So like a database. Cool. So we've configured the Sqlalchemy. Okay, so this is all caps Sqlalchemy database URI. We are going to use SQLite for this, and this is our database that we're going to create. Really, we've configured the app. I'm going to create the database itself, and this is an object of Sqlalchemy. Inside Sqlalchemy, let's drop our app. That's really all we had to do. So everything is configured, it's ready to go. Now we need to create a model. Now remember, a model is like each row in our database of data. So each task is a model. And this model is going to have a few attributes. So I'm really going to show you guys a to-do list, but we can change this for any database you want. That's why this project is like a template project, all right? So I'm gonna show you how you could tweak this for emails or anything else you want. So we need to create a class, a model. I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna create a class. Let's call this my task. This is a single task. And we're gonna tap into our database because this is a model. Okay. If you've worked with Django, or you're going to, some of this might look a little familiar, right? So that's why creating a model today is going to transfer. It's a transferable skill. So inside of our class task, right, this is really just like a data class. It's really just holding information. So I'm just going to say like data class, not literally the same thing, but it's pretty close. Row of data. So inside here, I need a few things. Each item is going to have an ID. This is unique, okay? So no same task can have the same ID. That's how we're going to be able to remove and update these items. So we're going to have an ID. We're going to have the task itself, so like the content. We're going to have, let's say, completed. Did they complete the task? Can I spell complete? I can't even spell that correctly. Okay, autocorrect. And then we're going to have the date, but we're just going to say created, okay, because I can't use date. ID is going to be equal to our database.column. Okay, it's a column in our database. And I'm just going to copy this a few times because each of these is going to be a column within our database. Remember, the model itself, this, is our row. So what is the ID? Well, the ID, to make it unique, it's going to be an integer. And because we're going to use this at a later stage, I'm going to say primary key here. And we're going to set this as true. This is the master key. This is going to allow me to add or delete things, or edit or delete things. Okay, so that's it. Our content, what type of content? Take a stab at it. What type of data is our content going to be? A string, right? So db.string. Okay, inside here, how many characters do you want to give the person? I'm just going to say 100. If you have a to-do list, or if you have a task over 100 characters in a to-do list, probably shouldn't be on a to-do list. So we'll just say 100. And another parameter we can say here is nullable is equal to false. Stop, not emojis. False. False. Okay, brilliant. The other ones I'm going to copy. It's an integer, right? So did I complete 0? Yes. Or no, right? 1, yes. Copy that. And the last one is created. So we could do this a few ways, all right? But let's just order them by the date we created them, because that's how a to-do list should work, okay? So we actually want this to be a date time object. Okay, so speaking of date time, let's go up to the top, all right? From date time, import date time. Okay, great. So now in here as the other one, we can just give it the default, which what do we want it to be? Well, we're going to tap into date time and we'll just say UTC now. Okay, brilliant. If everything checks, that should be good. Let's give this, wait, okay. I'm going to give this a default just so there's no errors of a 0. It starts at 0. Okay, so completed, no, we haven't completed it yet, okay? That'll be altered later, okay? Awesome. So our model's actually done. This is really a model. Remember, it represents one unit of data, one row of data. This is great. So we have this model, okay, but it's not returning anything. So we ultimately want to give data back that we can visibly see on the screen. So we're going to come down here. I'm going to use the dunder method of a string representation. Okay, that's pretty great. That's what I wanted. But I'm going to replace this. Okay, I'm going to give it an F string here. And let's just say, what is the task? And then we are just going to say our ID, right? Because that's how we're labeling the task. Okay, so our row of data is done. Our database is connected. This is wonderful. Now, really to get the database set up, because we don't see it over here, all right, I'm going to go to the bottom. Now, I'm going to have to use a context manager here. And what we're going to say is I'm going to say with my app, I'm going to create app context. And then we're going to say database, I would like to create, essentially is what this is going for. When I run my code, let's trash it first. Boom. Okay, so not much happened, but a new folder was created and you can see our database, which we can't visibly see, is empty. So everything is good, okay? Our database is good. We're now ready for the stage of really adding items to visibly see them to our list here, right? So if I type hello, I should be able to add that task and you can see nothing happened, okay? And deleting and all that. So let's focus on adding a task, all right? Where are we gonna add the task? Well, it's gonna be added here on our home page. Let's return here. I'm gonna shut down our database, okay, save, to our app index. And I'm gonna give some space. So ideally, please remember that this is like the home page. Okay, that's ideally our homepage. We want to add some functionality now because we need to send data to our database. So we're going to introduce those HTTP requests, and I'm going to go up here into route, and I'm going to give it another argument or parameter, right? I'm going to say methods is equal to. So what can I do on the homepage? Okay, I can send and I can receive data. All right, so I can get and I can post. Those are the two responses. So inside here, because we have two, it's a list, I'm going to say post. This homepage is able to add tasks, but it can also get all the tasks from the database to see on the screen. So we have post and get. Wonderful. So our logic is going to take place here now. Let's look at our class, our model. This is going to be key. So inside here, I'm going to have to do a few things. So let's do this. Let's say 1, I would like to add a task, and then 2, I would like to see all current tasks. I'm going to head up to the top here. Let me just import the rest of what I'm going to need, which is really just a function called redirect, and then I need something called request. Okay, let's go back down to our roots. So how do we add a new task? Well, we need to check which action is happening. Are we trying to send data or get data? So if the request, that's what I just imported. So if the method of request is equal to a post, if I'm trying to send data, then I need to gather content. So like current task. And the current task is equal to the request form. Now, this form, if I go back, put it inside here, it's this form, okay? So it's the information we're capturing from the HTML, okay? That's what's being used inside here. So anything inside the request form, I would like to target the content, all right? So going back here, right here, content, that's what we're targeting. We now have what the user entered for the task, okay? So I'm gonna create a new task, and this is gonna be an object of the class model we just made. What do I want to give the model? Well, I want to give the model the content. So content is equal to current task. Great. So we've created this new task object. What do we need to do? We need to send it off to the database. That's great. Let's say try. Okay, so I want to try to establish a connection. So I'm going to tap into my database and I'm going to create a new session. But this session, we are going to be adding. What are we going to be adding? We're going to be adding that new task. Once we try to add, we're going to take our database in the same session and we want to commit that to the database. Okay, so if you've worked with SQL, like SQLite 3, right, that's the Python version built in, all this SQL syntax should look vaguely familiar, okay, because it kind of is the same. So we've created this task, we've sent it to our database. What do we want to do now? I want to basically return the home page, but I want to update it. So I'm going to redirect back to the home page that we started with. If we use an except block, we do need here, if I use a try block, I need an exception. So I'm just going to catch this and I'm going to do two things. I'm going to print error. Okay, but then I'm also going to return error. And I have to return this because, well, we're returning stuff. So that's going to throw an error if I don't. So either way, we're just returning that. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so this is really the logic to add a task. What's the other one? I want to see all current tasks. So really not much is happening here. I'll say else. There's only one other option. Let me just keep this here because it might help you guys. Okay, great. So else, we want to see all the current tasks. So speaking of tasks, let's just say, okay, let's get all the tasks. And I'm going to get my model, and I want to make a query to my model. To output these, let's just say order by, because I can order by the date, right? I want to see the newest first, or the newest at the top, the oldest at the bottom, or however you want to sort that. And this could be with any data. Okay, so if you've numbered your data or you're collecting emails, right, dates are a good stronghold. You can see when this was collected and you could group by that. You can group by other things as well. Okay, what do I want to order by? Well, I'm going to take my task and I want to tap into one of the properties that we created. I would like to use created, this one right here. So I'm going to say my task, we're going to say created, and then I do want to get all of them. Awesome. Really, let's just bring, where is that? Let's just bring that back. I still want to render, okay? So I'm going to return that as the else. It's just this time, I want to give it all my tasks, right? Because then I have tasks, I want to see them. Okay, so tasks, I'm creating this and we're giving it all the tasks. That's pretty cool. All right, so it's our logic in the hub of Python is done, but we need to now take this database information and put it into our web page because it's not there yet. So let's open back up our index page. I'm going to split the screen. Okay, I can close out the side for more space. So you can see now, right, this is our index page. This was the original template. This data that we collect, we want to send it over to this page. So really, we're going to use some more Jenga here. So I'm going to come down here before my table. I want to add logic because this is just the title of the app. That's not relevant. I want to add logic here. And if you remember, I'm going to mark this. I created something called tasks. I made this up right now, and I gave it a value of all the tasks in our database. So now I have like a variable tasks. I'm going to say if tasks, that's what I created. I'm going to say if the task, the length is less than 1. What does that mean? There's nothing there. It's empty. So what should the user see if there are no tasks? Let's say like H3, okay, there are no tasks, ... create one here. Then let's just close out of that. Okay, so that's what the user sees, but we started a condition. I started my condition here. I do need to end that condition. So for here, I'm just going to say else. Okay, so this was the if. If there are no tasks, we would like to do this. Otherwise, I want to populate my table with the data we collected from our database. So the table remains the same, right? This chunk here is not any different. What's being populated is this chunk. So I'm going to mark 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm going to jump in here. Let's put some Jenga. Let's make a loop. Okay, so remember, I have this tasks. It's more than 1. So I can loop through it. And I can say for every task in all my tasks. I'm going to replace this now with our live content. So I'm going to say task.content. Now, this content is what we got from right here. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so this is ultimately what's being taken from our object. The data, what data? Well, this is really just the time. So I'm going to actually say task.created. And then I kind of want to strip some of the time away. Okay, so we're going to drop this in here. This is a function. Okay, and I would just like to see, I guess you could put them all here. I can say year, month, and day. If you just want month and day, that's fine, or day. Okay, looking good, more. Okay, so what else do I want to do here? I'm actually going to expand on this. I want to do 2 things. With each item in the to-do list, I'm going to give it 2 options, update, edit, or delete. All right, so I'm going to create 2 buttons that are going to be applied to each row in our to-do list. So within the last row, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an anchor tag. This is going to be like a button, ultimately. Currently, I'm going to say this. I'm going to give it a new route, which we haven't made yet, but this will be the delete route. And ultimately, I'm going to take my task, and how are we deleting? We're going to delete by the ID. This is great. Okay, I'm going to close that. We are going to say delete here, just like so. Okay, let's add some space. So I'm going to use the built-in break. And then let's just copy and paste this. Okay, the last one I'm going to say is going to be like update. We are going to do the same thing. This one, let's just change the button to say edit. We can edit the task. Okay, looking very good. We're in a for loop, right? So I started my for loop here. I do need to end the loop. So where is this loop going to end? It's going to end right here, okay, at the end of that row of data. Each row has a data. To end our for loop, we can just say end for, just like end block, but we're going to end that for. Then lastly, we have our if, else. Let's just end the if. We still have to actually end the if with Jenga. So inside here, let's just say end if. Done. Brilliant. Okay, make sure our block is in order. This is awesome. If I run back, I'm going to run my app real quick. It shut down. Okay, I'm going to close off this other stuff. Let me try this. So like task 1. Boom, so I sent it. Okay, well that's not working, but there are no new tasks here. Create one. This is great. Let's go back to our code. All right, so that wasn't working. I believe, let's check here. So, okay, a few things. I don't think this matters. I'm gonna tab that inside. Okay, here we go. So our form needs an action, right? Because our root, we have our methods post and get. So when I click send, nothing occurred on the web page. We need to see that. So here inside my form, I need to give it an action. So this action, I'm going to put the home page. Okay, that's the home page there. And then what method are we giving this? We're giving it a post method. Okay, let me run that again now. Okay, ideally, that should connect everything. Okay, open up our server, add me. Boom, look at that. Okay, so we're able to add data. Looks ugly, that's fine. But let's add the other two functionality, because if I click delete, oh, no found, right? It's not found. And this is a Flask error, that's fine, okay? It is kind of handling kind of how it should be because we haven't programmed that button yet, all right? That's our next step. So back to our code, our index is good. I'm gonna close these now. Let's just focus on our main page. So we have our object, our class, our model. We've done the home page. Let's now come down here and let's focus on the next one. Our next one, I'm gonna say delete an item. Okay, so let's create a new root. I'm gonna say app root. Now, this one I'm going to leave empty for a moment, okay? I'm going to create a function called delete, because that's what's happening here. We are going to delete by our ID, and remember the ID is an integer, so we'll just pop in the ID. If we go up to our model, everything has a unique primary key. That's the key stage, so I can edit and delete based on those unique items. Great. Down in our function, so we really want to do two things here. Okay, well, one thing, okay? I can't delete the task if I don't have the task, but the button only appears if I have the task. So I don't really have to check if we have it or not. I just have to do it. So let's say delete task. This is going to be an object of our model. Okay, so I'm gonna take my model. I'd like to make a query again. Okay, what are we gonna query? So they actually have one in here, yeah, get or 404. So it's either going to delete this or give me an error, a 404 error, right? But this is gonna pass because the button will only be there if we have that in our to-do list. So there's not really a way that it's gonna throw the error. So 404 shouldn't occur. Anyways, what are we deleting by? ID, right? That was the parameter we gave it. Great. So we know the task that we want to try to delete. So I'm going to try to do what we did before, right? We need to connect to our database. So I'm going to say db.session. I want to create a new session, but this time I'd like to delete. What do we want to delete? The delete task. Great. Once we've attempted that, we are going to tap into our session and we want to commit that session. We want to send it through. And we've done that. We want to update the home page. So we're going to redirect again. We're going to redirect back home. That's wonderful. Except, let's throw in that again, exception as E. I'm going to return here, f-string error, E. Okay. Brilliant. That's actually kind of it. The only last detail is up here in route. Okay, so we need to route this page. So if you imagine a URL like HTTPS, this is just an example. www.google/page1/2/task. Okay, whatever. So all of these, right, I'm essentially creating these links to our web pages, okay? So inside here, I need to create a new root because currently what I have is, it's not actually home, but the index would be this page. So ultimately, I need to create this page, a new root. So inside the root, I'm going to say delete because that's the name of this root. And then each item is unique by integer. So I'm going to say int, and we're going to give it ID, okay? All right, that is good fun. Let me run our code again. Okay, that should resolve the errors we had, yeah, okay. So here I have this, if I click delete, look at that, we just deleted. So adding a task, right? I could do walk the dog. This is great. Subscribe to Code with Josh. Subscribe. And then we can walk the dog, delete. This is great, awesome. What's the last stage we need to do? Well, it looks ugly, forget that, okay? Functionality is key. We need to update an item. If you spelled something wrong or you want to add something, let's edit that item. So really heading back here, I'm gonna come down here and I'm gonna create the last one, edit an item. Okay, this is the last functionality. So really I'll come down here, I will create a new root. Okay, well, I'm gonna leave that empty for now, but you can guess what's gonna go there. And I'm gonna create one called update, or I guess edit. I like edit. Okay, how are we gonna edit? Well, also by an ID. Okay, so once that's created, we have an ID. I need to try to get the task that we access. So really, I can just copy this because it's gonna be the same thing. I'm creating a task. Okay, so I'm querying, I'm getting that task. 2 equal signs, no. Okay. Great. Once I have a task, then I need to basically check, right? If I'm trying to send new information or if I'm trying to get information. So what we're going to do here again is I'm going to say request.method. If the method is a post method, if I send information, right, what do I want to do? Well, I want to update the content. So I'm going to take the task and I'm going to tap into the property content. Okay, this is up in our model above. We can get our request, right? We're going to go form again, and we're going to put in our content. This is what we have above, right? So I'm basically updating that. Now, because we already have that in our database, really, I just have to log into my session, and we just have to commit that. Once we've done that edit, we're going to return to, well, redirect, not that, our home page. Okay, let's throw in an exception. Great, so we've done the if. So if I edit it, okay, else, what should happen? Well, once I edit it, I need to like refresh the screen again. So I should be doing 2 things here. One, I should actually create a new web page. So when I click edit, it should actually take me inside of that item, edit it, and then I come back to the home page. Okay, so I'm going to throw in an else. Now, we don't quite actually have this yet. So I'm going to put else. Let's return, let's just say home. This will be a test. I'm going to replace this in a moment. Okie dokie. So the last thing up here for now, up here in our root, okay, let's say edit, because that's what we're trying to do. How are we editing this by? The integer with that ID again. Okay, great. And then we can really do 2 things here. So I'm actually going to tap into my methods again. We're going to say methods is our list. What 2 actions do we have? We have our get and we have a post. This is good. Let me try to run this, make sure we're on the same page. Okay, I'm going to click edit. Oh, so close. Nope. Okay, let me refresh. Edit. Say, okay, so no, we have bigger errors. Let's close that. That's fine. Let me just kill the terminal. So everything looks okay. I have my root. Always check your root here in your file. So go to index. Oh, here we go. So I said update. Let me change that because in my Python I said edit. All right, so make sure that these match, okay? These links, these URLs, okay, these are the actual pages, the routes themselves up here to your page, okay? So when I run this, fingers crossed, right? An error would have been nice, but edit. Oh, sweet. So, okay, it does. Home, right? That's all I'm doing now.
All right, so that's great. Our edit button is working, but now I want to display a page where a user can actually enter what they want to change about this. To do this, I'm going to create an entirely new HTML page.
So heading back down here, I'm just going to create it outside so I can work with it. Let's call it edit HTML. Let's bring in, well, no, we're actually going to use Jinga. So I am going to use Jinga, but let me just do my fast version first. Okay, so really, this is what we had before. So I'm creating a div. I'm going to keep the class we had. So what class did I have? Content. So I'm going to say content because it's still the content.
So all my CSS will be applied to this, right?
I'm not creating anything new. So I have my class content. I'll create like an H1 and we'll say like edit your task. And then I'm going to create a new form. And this action, well, we want to edit. So I'm going to put that URL, that link we have here. And inside here, it's not going to really visibly see now, but I need Jinga. So I'm just going to type it because it's easier. That's my task ID. Okay. Now, finally, what is the last thing? Let me give space because it's really the initial header. The last component we need is what method? What are we trying to do? And well, we want to post. I want to send a new update to my database. So we're going to post it. Inside here, we're going to get input 2 times. One is going to be the text input, and this is where they are going to enter what they want to change. We're going to keep the names we had earlier. So content, and I'll show you guys these here too. ID equals content. And then the value that we're initially going to give it is the user needs to see the task content that they want to update. So we'll say task content. These 3 things, if I go to index, where? These. Okay, I just took the same values. I'm not creating anything new, it's the same value. Okay, so in our edit, that one is done. My other one is going to be of what? Well, it's not that, it's our type submit because it's going to be a button. And then the value of this is just going to say edit. Okie dokie. I'm going to now remove this. So my div, just Control X. I'm going to delete all of that. I'm going to take my edit and drop it in templates. Okay, now, how do we get our base HTML? Well, extends, right? Where are we extending from? Our base.html. So we can get that brought into our code. Great. The other 2, let's just go into base. Okay, we need our head. What's the name? And we need our body block. This is all the HTML we just made. So inside my body block, this is where I just removed it. Let's just, no, I deleted everything, didn't I? Crap, okay. Okay, there we go. So this is what we had before. Okay, I brought that over. Really inside here, I'm just gonna paste what I just cut. So that's all the same content. Up top here, right, you could bring in a title. I'm just going to use the same title. So task smash over here, paste. That looks great. So I don't need base. Index is done. Okay, so our edit HTML file is completed. If we head back here, I'll split the screens up. Let's go to our app. Everything is good. The only difference now is I'm going to render. I want to return a template. So we're going to render that template out. Which template are we going for? Well, this one is going to be our edit.html. Now, the last one is we need our other argument, right? So what else are we going to give it? Well, I'm going to give it my task. So I'm going to say task is equal to task, right? So we made task right here. Okay, I'm giving this task to my template, comma, nope. And it's going to be used right here in our HTML file. This should be actually golden. Let me kill the server, run the server. Okay, edit. Oh, look at that. Subscribe to Code with Josh. Let's say like this course. Update. Oh, okay. So let's debug this. Let's go back and find this error. First thing I'm going to do here is click. Okay, so look, I still have this update thing. So this update is actually the telltale sign. If I go inside here, did I say, yeah, I just copied that, didn't I? Is this edit? Yeah, so this needs to be edit. Okay, yeah. Okay, bring back the page. Let's just refresh it. Okay, so let's change this. So let's say testing update. Ah, look at that. Okay, testing cat dog update. Okay, now we're good to go. I can delete that. Okay, create no task. So everything is working. Guys, just remember, right, because I had that happen 2 times to me. In my code, right, this is just all gray, so I can use the same elements, but, okay, the root that we are creating right here, this root, it also needs to match the root in our HTML form, okay, as well as the method itself, right? This is really, really good. So guys, you now have a working CRUD application. Congratulations, okay, but it's ugly. And I did tell you it's time to style our app. So let me think here, but I'm thinking it's time to jump into CSS. I'm not going to deep dive in CSS, but I'm going to speak about how it's working and what I'm doing with it. Let's jump in and start styling your application. So really we're ready for the SASS part. I'm going to open up here a few things. So I'm going to open up index because this has most of our elements we can see here. I don't really need the app file anymore, and I'm going to open up my SASS file. So SASS and index. Okay. I'm going to close down everything else. Okay, our app is still running. So just to check, right, if I change this to red, we should see something horrific. Yep, that's horrific. Okay. So SASS. I use this for 2 reasons, all right? It's really, really useful. And the way my mind works is I can visually see what HTML elements are inside of others and have parents, okay? And it also allows me to create variables in my CSS, which is a really useful hack. So at the top here, I'm going to start off by creating variables. So specifically, I'll say color variables. Okay, to create a variable in SASS, we're going to use the $ and the name of your variable. So for example, primary color, okay? And then instead of saying an equal sign, we're going to use CSS and say ... Okay, what do we want the primary color to be? I already have a color, so I'm going to say this. You can put what you want, save. That's a variable. I created a variable. That's it. Let me create a few more colors here. Okay, actually, I'm just going to use the ones I've created. Boom, there we go. So I have 5 different variables that I can very easily just see at the top of your code. So any color theme you're going for, it's really easy just to see like, hey, this is what my app's using. And you can tweak them up top without having to go through each time. Time saver. All right, so we have these color variables. We can now style. Looking over here, I can see that everything I have on the page is held in this div, this parent content class. All right, the first thing I'm gonna do before I start getting into the nitty gritty is let's just target the overall body. So I'm gonna give it like a font family. I could choose any of these. Let's go down to like, Franklin Gothic Medium. That sounds cool. I have a font family. We always like to give a margin of 0, okay, padding of 0. Good practice. And a background color, I'm going to apply the wheat color I originally had. That just looked nice. Okay, so this is just affecting the whole body, normal CSS. Let's get into, I guess to prove my point here, I could actually just say BG color. And I'm going to say that is just wheat. Okay, I mean, this is, I don't need to do this here. This is just to show you guys, hey, I can take this variable and say BG color. Okay, okie dokie. So our page, the entire div is labeled content. That's the name of the class. So I'm going to begin by targeting the actual div itself of content, just like we would normally. So my content div, what are the styles I want to apply to the overall content? I'm going to give it a max width. Let me just drop in styles here. Okay, this is just the initial setup. Great. So here is the div styled. If I go back, let's just okay. That's looking a bit better. So we can see that I have some styling for the div here. If I make it bigger, it stays that size. This looks really good. Okay. Okay. So here's where CSS comes into play. So I'm in my content div, right? And you can see, like, for example, I want to target this H1. Usually in CSS, you'd have to go outside and everything would have a class name or an ID name. I don't like that. I like to see where is where, all right? So instead of putting it outside, I can actually nest. And I'm just going to say H1. Any H1 in the content div. What do I want to do? And I could apply a color, and I'm going to say one of my variables title color, like so. So I've now targeted the H1. If I go back, refresh, okay, well, I chose the worst color for that. Let's just use this for now. Okay, you can see it's blue, right? I kind of like that actually. Let's look at that again. Yeah, sure, I'll keep the blue. Not what I wanted it for, but it's working now. Okay, so other things we want to target. I'm just going to go in here. Anything that's H4, I'm going to give that a color. We are going to give that a color. Where's my variable? Or let's just give this a different color, actually. Okay, so my table is going to need some styling. Where's my table? I'm going to mark it here because now we're going to get some really nested things that you're going to see. So I'm going to start with a width, and we're just going to say the table occupies 100%. That's cool. We're going to give it a little margin top, and I'll say 20 pixels, just a bump. And then I do want to collapse the border. Is that one of the properties still? Collapse. Yeah. Okay. I don't want to see that, so I'm just going to say collapse. Now within the table, okay, I can now target elements. I can continue to nest. Let me show you what the CSS looks like, because right now, how does this look like? Well, if we go to our CSS file, it automatically maps for us. So without SASS, this is what you'd have to do. You have to target the class and then target the element. But with SASS, we're just nesting. So now within my table, what do I have within my table? Well, I have table headers and I have table data. So I could get specific here and I could say, hey, all the table headers and the table data are going to have a padding of 10. And they are going to have a little border because they're really hard to see. So I'm just going to say 1 pixel solid, and let's just give it a really basic color. Yeah, okay, cool. Awesome. Within the table data, what do I have? Well, it should be good, actually. Let me just drop in here. I want to apply additional styling to the header that the data doesn't have, only the header will have. So like a background color here, let's just give this F0. Yeah, that's fine. And then we'll give it a color and we'll just say 333. Okay, so awesome. If I run this, let's open that up, refresh, let me add a task. Hello. Look at that. I mean, that just looks really good. It looks clean now, all right? You're styling. Wonderful. Let me just add a few more in here. I'm gonna drop in actually 2. Cool, so all my anchor tags, any links, okay, I drop that in for the styling. So This is just the styling here. On our page, if I yeah, look at that. That's amazing. But it doesn't have any hover. Now, usually on CSS, you would have to go up here and say like hover. It's true. You can still do that, right? Another way of CSS is I'm actually just going to come down here inside the anchor tag as a nest. And I'm going to say and hover. This is just better. Okay. And on hover, what do I want to do? Well, the button background color is going to change to hover color. Okay. This one is that primary color? There we go. That's why. Okay. Really good. Let me add in our input. And my very last one I'm going to style for a completed application is just going to be my button add. All right, that's the add button there. I'm going to give that a green color, and we're going to give that a pointer. I am going to say here to our last step, I'm going to say and on the hover, not the B. I would like to give a background color of our success hover color. Wow. I got an error. Where is my error? Well, let's find it. Hover. Hover, hover, hover. Yeah. Oh, percent. That's why the button didn't work. And there you go. There's my success. So refresh. There you go. Look at that. So delete, delete, smash the like, and subscribe. Well done, guys. Look at that. You have a working CRUD application. And I am so excited that I got to take you guys through Flask and introduce you to this exciting framework in Python. I hope you enjoyed the SASS CSS part as well, because I enjoy that, right? The tools we used here today, you were introduced to Flask, Sqlalchemy, as well as SASS. Now you have a working project. It's time to deploy that project. Where and how are we going to do this? Let's check it out. To prepare our app for deployment, we want to do a few things. So I'm going to do at the bottom here, okay? Let's change this. So if name in main, I'm going to replace in with 2 equals, okay? I'm getting ready for deployment. And I don't want this to run now inside here, this context manager. I want this to run as soon as the app is created to create a new database. So I'm going to put that context manager up here. Let's just put it after our class. Okay, make sure indentation's all good. Okay, very nice. So I've changed to 2 equal signs. We moved up our context manager. And the last stage is I want to put a flag for Sqlalchemy. So I'm going to go under here and I'm going to say app.config. I want to add one more configuration in here. And inside here, I'm going to say Sqlalchemy. I want to track the modifications. We are going to set this equal to false. So this is going to speed up our app, and then it's not going to try and save the database every single time. Okay, so when a user goes to your web page after you deploy your app here in a few minutes, right, it's not going to have a pre-existing database. It's going to generate us one on the spot for your user. All right, well done. Give your app a run, make sure it works, but we're ready to go. I've done the 3 steps we need to get ready for deployment. Okay, the next step is GitHub. Here I am over in GitHub, and I've already uploaded the app to my profile, okay? And all we really want to do now is head on over to Python Anywhere. This is where I'm going to be deploying my application. Now, I usually would have said Heroku, but they started charging a year or 2 ago, okay? So Python Anywhere is a great way to deploy your applications for free, but you can only have one app deployed at a time, and it's only for 3 months, okay? Unless you upgrade. So head on over here, create a free account, and you should be taken to a dashboard that looks like this. To get started deploying our app, I'm going to head up to web, and let's jump into web. And I'm going to click add a new web app. Inside here, let's go through the setup. So let's say next, I'm going to click manual configuration. I know it says Flask, just this drove me nuts, okay? I got it to work on manual configuration, so these are the steps that I've written down for us. So when I click manual configuration, click the version of Python we're using, 3.1 or newer, all right? And we're just gonna go through these steps. Wonderful, so it's loaded, it's done its thing, okay? Now, nothing is ready yet.
okay? Once we have that set up, the next step is to head over to consoles. We're gonna run some bash, okay? And once we're inside consoles, we can go over here and click on bash. So if you have any open, I do. I'm gonna close that. I'm gonna click here on bash, and now it's time to run some. So I'm gonna drop these in. I already have them out, okay? And we'll talk about them as we go through. Really what we wanna do is we wanna create a virtual environment here in this bash, or excuse me, on Python Anywhere. Okay, so these lines of code I'll put out for you guys. I'm creating a virtual environment here. I'm gonna run that. It takes some time to do its thing on Python Anywhere, but that's all right. Just give it a few moments. Okay, great. So I'm actually gonna tap into git clone now. And if we go back over to your repository, we are gonna copy our git link, heading back here, drop that in and click enter. Okay, so we've cloned the application we want to deploy, and I want to CD into the application now. So CD, mine is called in this example, my CRUD app. So my CRUD app. Okay, so now I'm inside this app. And within here, if I go back to this, okay, I'm ready to go, okay, because my outer app is right here. So really what I'm gonna do now that I'm inside my app is I'm gonna say pip install. We want to install the requirements needed that we have in that requirements text file. So I'm gonna say pip install our requirements.txt. Let it run, let it do its thing. All right, that's it. Now we have to head back into our web. We've installed everything we need to in this console. It's time to go back to our web. So just click up top here, go over to our web tab, and we're gonna scroll down to where it says right here. So I have code, okay? I need the source code. All right, so you need to enter a path. In order to get this path, okay, I'm gonna go up to files. Let's go inside your app. So click the app folder you have, and then you can just copy this, right? So copy the whole way across. I'm gonna take that, and we're gonna go back to web and paste that. So down here in code, I'm gonna paste that right there and just click check. Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna open up this WSGI configuration file, and we have to do a little bit of code, not much. Really, you can just do Control A and delete everything there, okay? I'm gonna put in code, and this code does matter, okay? So make sure my indentation is correct. Now, very quickly, I have to put my path in here that I just got in the previous section. So I should have done that in 2 pages. I'm gonna save that. I'm gonna go back, files, my app. Let's just copy the link again. Okay, so I'm copying the link. Now, if we go back to our WSGI configuration file, inside here, I'm gonna drop my path, just like that. Okay, and what this is, okay, so in my Git app, right, I have the main Python file called app.py. So it's saying from the app.py file, I would like to import the Flask app as my application. Okay, so that's why whatever you call it, if it's your main file, that has to be changed here. Let's click save. I can go back now. And really the final step is I'm gonna go back into files. I'm now gonna click on my virtual environments folder, and I'm gonna copy that path. Okay, so copying that path. Going back to web, the final step is if we go down here to virtual environment, I just need to paste in that path. No virtual environment, that's fine. Do I have to create it? No, I have one. I'm gonna try and run this without that. Okay, okay. I'm gonna click here, the green button, reload. There's a problem, look at my, okay, so I did have an issue with that. I'm gonna go to files real quick. Virtual environments. I'm gonna click on this folder instead. Copy this, and I'm gonna replace it. Okay, that fixed it. So just click inside the next folder if you happen to have one, and we can paste that there. Let me refresh the screen, so reload my website. Voila. If we click my link now, Ideally, boom, it takes you to your live deployed Flask site. I know this part was really confusing, so I'm gonna make a short video for this. You can expect this out really soon, all right? And it's gonna be dedicated just to deploying Flask applications on Python Anywhere. Now inside here, if we just say create course, enter, boom, okay, nice. Walk the dog, enter. If I want to delete one, I can. And if I want to edit one, we can say walk the cat. You now have a working deployed Flask application right here. You can play around and check out the app, okay? And put in your stuff there as you like. And there you have it, guys, your very own CRUD application in Python. An introduction into web development showcasing Flask, SASS, as well as Sqlalchemy. I'm stoked that we got to work through this project together. And I know that the deployment part is rather chaotic, and I will have a video coming out about this, guys, guiding you through the deployment process itself. All right, so stay tuned. If you guys enjoy this kind of content, this is a long form tutorial, a long form breakdown the way I do it, like and subscribe to this video, as that really does help me a growing channel. And guys, if you want early access to my videos, consider joining the YouTube membership, the community thing. I just launched it recently. I did make my own badges, all right? And you get early access to my videos amongst other things like courses and tutorials, right? All right, well, that's all for this episode. I will see you guys in next week of Code with Josh. Until then.